Yo, I just had to let that beat ride for a little bit, man. You are tuned into the Pop Says Podcast. I am your host, JGhee, alongside my man
JB.
And again, this is Pop Says Podcast, and where we're virtually sitting right next to the refrigerator, eating our virtual grapes, asking, why haven't you taken out the virtual trash today, Craig? Yo, man, it's been a tumultuous week, but it's been a blessing nonetheless. We're going to get right into it, man. That beat, look, this beat right here, I keep on saying it. I said it in the first podcast, but I want to give a shout out, a continuous shout out to my man, JGhee. I'm going to give you some information on him. He created the My Dougie beat. He worked with UGK back in the day, and he's still doing his thing out there in Houston, I believe. So big shout out to JGhee, and I'm going to give you some of his IG and all his social media information here in a minute, but I'm going to get more profound with that a little bit. But yeah, I'm going to drop some information before the show is over, and yeah, that's that 995. I actually rapped on this back in the day. Me and my man BY. Oh, shout out to BY, man. BY the Fly Guy. But Extra Fly Entertainment. He has a distribution company out here in Dallas. Just worked on some stuff with Lil Ronnie out here in Dallas. Lil Ronnie MF. And he's doing major things. So I want to give a shout out to BY the Fly Guy, man. And without further ado, we're going to get right into it, man. Let's not even trip on today, man. Let's start off with just I applaud you, brother. I applaud you, JB. I really do. If I haven't told you before, I love you, brother, and I love you for your tenacity and calling me and brainstorming, and you just kind of like a bear claw, bro. You don't let go on your dreams and the way you see my dreams unfurling. You said, hey, I think our dreams align together. And I think that is an example of what pops, all my pops says should do. All my pops out there, that I think we should align with each other. It doesn't have to be even a big group, right? Like we got this misconception that we got to formulate like a NFL squad. And, you know, it says where two or more gathered, so shall he be in the midst in, right? So, you know, he said two or more for a reason. He started with that number for a reason. You know what I'm saying? And I think it's also said in the, I can't even, don't have me quote it, but I need to find the exact scripture where Jesus was talking to the soldier, the Roman soldier, and he had two swords, and I got to find the scripture, but he had two swords, and he's like, two is enough. You know what I'm saying? So that number two, I guess what I'm trying to say is sometimes you don't need even 3, 4, 5, 6 to 100. You just need two. And start with that, fellas, and mom says out there. So yeah, we got a lot to talk about, man. I just saw and got wind of what was going on between Kirk Franklin and his son. And
you know what's crazy? That's probably a good, I guess you say, thing to discuss, because if you think about Pop Says, that was a dad talking to a son.
Yeah.
And the worst part of it came out. And you know what? A lot of people, oddly enough, in the midst of all this cancer culture and, you know, what's going on with that, is that we're starting to see that there is support from families, not in his character flaw, okay? Because we're gonna get into that in here in a minute too, but not in his character flaw, but in the fact that it sounded like passion being perpetuated in the sound of how he said it. You know what I'm saying? And I can truly attest to that. But sometimes we as parents, we love our kids so much to where we're not concerned about how close to the flames we are in another situation, another world. You know, he wasn't thinking that his son was recording. That's the last thing he was thinking. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? He was, you know, if anything, he was unveiling his heart, no matter how it was unveiled. And from what I understand, when he was talking to the public and trying to get in front of it through a media perspective, my bad, that is mom Mom says trying to call me. My bad. He also alluded to the fact that he was in the midst of being, I guess, in therapy. He had a family therapist online with him. And he said what my son didn't tell the public is that our family therapist was on the other line. And we were trying to get some type of commonality associated to what we were going through.
I didn't even look that deep into it. I had no idea. I just heard the call. Yeah.
Well, of course, him being who he is, from a PR standpoint, he had to get in front of it, right?
Yeah.
So, and then he apologized. He came out with a public apology. And from that point on, it just was one of those things. Thank you. It was one of those things where it was kind of like, for some people, why apologize? And then for some people, it's like, yeah, you should. But I think for who he was in that professional outfit, it was more so, hey, let me get out in front of this as Kirk Franklin, the singer, as Kirk Franklin, the figure, not so much as Kirk Franklin, the father. That's how I looked at it.
Yeah, plus I felt like even if he didn't have to apologize, once you're branded like that, it looks bad, just people just randomly hearing you cuss out your kid.
Right.
But I'm pretty sure most of the people commenting that have kids have probably said a lot worse stuff to their kids every day than what he said. I think my mama talked to me like that.
Oh, my dad.
Every day.
My dad he was a Vietnam vet.
Yeah.
He didn't. All my pop says out there that was raised by a Vietnam vet. Y'all already know. You know what I'm saying? Let's just get this understood. Yeah. There is no filter. You know what I'm saying?
'Cause I got that on the regular. So I think most people probably, or at least the half that felt like I'm going to side with him, because most people do at some point talk to their kids kind of like that.
Yeah.
They can push you that far. And then for him to be 33, he's too old to be doing that.
Yeah, because when I first heard it, I was like, I just heard son. And
you thinking he 12? Or?
I'm thinking he like 17, 18. And even if he was, I've said some things out of I'm not going to say out of line, but that very colorful words being displayed to my 15, 16, 17-year-old son out of frustration. So even then, and keep in mind, I'm not justifying it, but we were raised in a different era to where the sensitivity factor and level wasn't as high as it is, and the PC level wasn't as high as it was. So, and nor was the understanding of communal PTSD or war PTSD. That wasn't a thing that was addressed back then. So we just took it as like, I remember being part of this group of kids that had fathers that went to Vietnam. Once I found out that there was more kids whose fathers went to Vietnam, I was like, whoa, this is a pattern. Like, this is, your pop's crazy too, like mine.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm pretty sure like with your mom, once you identified with somebody who was going through that same thing, it was kind of like, I'm not the only one. So it kind of got
but when all y'all getting
glossed over.
Out,
yeah. When all y'all getting cussed out,
like,
it's like the norm.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I think coming from that side of things, me looking at it, it was like, oh, I've seen some Christian fathers go off. You know what I'm saying?
That's what I was going to say. I think that probably played the larger role. If he wasn't singing gospel and doing that, I don't think it would have even hit as
if he
hard.
didn't have gospel attached to his brand.
That whole godly and he's supposed to be perfect, and
Look,
he should never do that.
Right.
So I think that's where the bulk of the backlash came from. Like, whoa, that was Kirk.
Right.
But hey.
Well, speaking Kirk Franklin.
It was funny though, because he did sound like they were saying he sounded like Pinky.
He kind of did.
He kind of did. Yeah, he kind of did.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of a quote from Pinky from Friday. I'm a big Friday fan. He said, everything going for sale, and you too, or something like that. You too. I'm misquoting that, but anyway, I am a boy, but over here we are men. So hey, look, shout out to the Franklin family, and our prayers goes out to y'all, because we've definitely been in that, and that kind of brings me to the theme of the show, which is now that I saw that, so I was going to title it "Speaking Kirk Franklin." But overall, communication rules the nation, right? And you called me yesterday, and he was like, "Yo, what are we talking about?" And I was like, "Look, I just went through some stuff with wifey where because I believe I'm an empty nester. You know, they come back from time to time, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, because I'm an empty nester, I said we got lost in the sauce as far as our communication, and because our kids are kind of filling the adult void out there and trying to figure out where they belong in this world. We now have more space in the house, right? So we decide to kind of kick it and go our separate ways. I go kick it with my partner, and she go kick it with her own girl, which is completely fine. You know what I'm saying? Never had a problem with it, but we got back to the home base, and it was a misunderstanding. Not with words. It was a misunderstanding with tonality. And somebody said it best to me. I don't know if it was my dad or somebody else, but he said that women listen to you, men hear you. And I've heard it say about a woman that men listen, women hear. So what that tells me is that there's a variation of, no matter the gender roles, right, that they either listen to tonality or they listen to the words. But either way you put it, there's always going to be a misunderstanding.
Yeah, I was going to say, I agree.
To what is going on, to what is being said between two parties, right?
I think it's because, me personally, I feel like they speak from a different place.
Right.
And because of that, I think it leads more with feelings.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't normally go feelings and then also thinking, if it's blue, it's blue. You're not going to say, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
You get a lot of that.
It's purplish fuchsia with a hint of,
It is blue, but it really has a raspberry. Okay, it's blue though.
It's blue, right?
But there's like 400 different blues that exist.
Right.
So technically, they're not wrong. But I just think that's the example of, you see it's blue, or that one little thing that came out where, like, you look at the sweater, mm-hmm. and it's like green and white to one person, blue and white to another person, and then like black and gold to another person. Mm-hmm. To me, I feel like it's kind of the same way. When you say something, I just think people interpret what you're saying based on what their understanding of it is.
Right.
And I'd like to equate that, to slang or something. If I say, yo, that's tight, or mm-hmm. yo, that go hard. Hard for somebody really means physically hard.
Hard, right.
So I look at the communication with our wives, and mom says the same way. They just hear us sometimes in that tone. And if you carry the bravado like I'm thinking, mm-hmm. then you have a history where maybe in this tone, I'm used to this following.
Right.
So I'm starting to hear that tone. So I'm immediately going to go to where I think it's about. I'm going to react because that's the tone that reminded me of the last 20 years worth of tones.
Right.
And I recognize that tone and I don't like it, even though I think I'm guilty of that too, because I could talk to my kids and they'll just bust out of nowhere crying. I'm like, huh? And they're like, well, you sound like you mad at me. But I'm not even nowhere near mad.
Nowhere near mad.
Thinking about it, but my tone when I'm not mad, I guess, is the same as when I am mad.
When you are mad.
So I guess the problem is
can't win for losing.
They really can't tell the difference.
Right.
And I think for some people, if you do have a strong part of you,
right.
if they see that, it's like, I think we might be going there.
Yeah, it was immediately like, for some time, she put on the armor and everything, and I was like, hello? Like, I was kind of baffled, and she was like, she was thinking the same thing, and I was like, and then from that point, because I really was just, I couldn't wait for her to get home, so we could have our little weekend thing, you know what I'm saying, and then the night ended up where we sleeping in different bedrooms. But I guess
it don't take much.
It don't take much. So I guess, in that understanding or in that scenario, if hindsight is 20/20, but if we could rewind, I would have asked her, did I come off rude or I would have tried to get some clarification from it. So, fellas out there, just understand that we are men. I'm not telling you to tone it down at all. I'm not going to apologize for who I am and the male that I am, because I'm always changing as a person. I'm not going to not change. And I think that's a subject for a next show, is that it's okay to change. You know what I'm saying? But, you as a male, there's nothing you can do about that. The only thing that you can do, just kind of like Kirk Franklin, is get in front of it from a PR perspective and be tactful in how you're explaining yourself. So shout out to Wifey. We got it understood, and even though we let the sun go down on our anger, we were blessed with giving another day,
another shot.
And as soon as that sun came up, I gave her a kiss. I told her, "Hey man, I miss my best friend, and I want to sleep in my own bed
again."
Yeah, again.
The thing, like even when I think about stuff like that, I think I was watching a video or something the other day, and I think one of the videos said men or whoever they were talking to, I think it was addressing guys, just guys don't even try to understand women. I think that was like the whole.
Why is that? Why is it? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No.
So women are trigonometry and calculus all put together?
I still agree with that, but
I thought I was onto something.
Yeah, but no. Here's the thing: I agree with that, but I think the problem is that, and you can use this for both sides. I think when you're used to operating alone, like even if we take it to where you can go friendships, siblings, cousins, aunts, uncles, family members, co-workers. I think anytime you're forced to have to be with a person, I think the only difference with marriage is like we said we want to be together. But if I go to a job, I'm just now with these 30 people. Or if I open my business and I have these customers, I just have to deal. You're always dealing with people.
Right.
So I feel like in a marriage, the hard part is you're being forced to communicate, and work with people. But in this case, it's your wife, and you got to do it every day.
Yeah.
Every day. And you can't break. There's no break. It's night and day.
Yeah, you know what? And I told myself this week that I was going to be more aware of that. And because at the job, I really do a really good job. And it's easy to deal with people in the outside world because you know that there are greater repercussions to how you act, right? And we work in the same field, so, and you probably know the same people, but it's one particular person who, in our arena, in the tech arena, words, they don't mean nothing. It's just the basics of communication. If you mess up, it's like, why did you do that? And it's usually through a text or, through an email, whatever. It's never through word or by mouth. And so I really had some technical hardware issues going on with my computer. And the dialogue was like, no joke, you're going to have to get this Ethernet cable, this hardware. And if not, we don't see how, I don't see how this is going to last. You know what I'm saying? And, oh, hey, Mom. How Mom says. It's like, I don't know how this is going to, how we're going to keep you on shift. And I was like, whoa. I was like, so I kind of tongue in cheek, kind of like, no joke, I'm working on getting this, you know what I'm saying? And it's kind of like, in the back of my mind, I was like, I wish I seen this chunk, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'd seen this chunk face to face, you know what I'm saying? But it was kind of like, because we're behind the screen and we're behind the keyboard, words are even more valuable than face to face at this point.
Yeah, because you can't really interpret what they're meaning. Sometimes you read it, and that's not how it meant to come off.
Right. So before I even took it there, I was like, you know what? JG, just get the hardware. Just get the hardware, which I did, and my computer's running fine, I think, and it's no big problem. But imagine if I would have took it there, you know what I'm saying, based off of what I thought his tonality was. So, again, thank goodness I don't have to go in hindsight and rewind.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? because I always tell my kids this, and I said this in another podcast, money and emotions make for great slaves but horrible masters. I recently heard Robert Kiyosaki say that. I didn't know that was his main quote that he uses, but I truly believe that money and emotions make for great slaves and horrible masters. So don't let them overcome you. You know what I'm saying? Don't let your emotions overcome you, because it can mushroom into something that you really can't handle.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I'm pretty sure, because I've heard you on the phone with your kids too, by the way, and we're both we sound aggressive when the interpretation really is not that. It's.
You know what's messed up is I don't view myself as aggressive.
I don't see.
I don't even know how I even got that. Like, it's almost like a reputation. I'm like, when am I aggressive?
I don't say. You know what? Aggressive is. I say it loosely. I would say that your presence is one that is. I can't figure out the word, but it. I can tell when I talk to you that I know this cat is not gonna lie to me.
Well, I hope so, because I'm sending him around lying for what? You know?
Right. Yeah. I know that there's truth in your tonality. I know that when you say something, or when you ask me to do something, or when you say that you are going to do something, I trust in you to do it. I don't know if it's the puffer, the lack of puffery that most people would give you. You know, they give you all these big words and all these illustrious words and sentences just to say this one thing, and then they don't end up doing it. But it's something about you that lets me know that, okay, he is going to do what he says. And I don't want to necessarily push that off as aggressive, but you do command a respect without commanding it. You know what I'm saying? There's a presence about you.
Well, and the thing is, like, well, I'll say thank you, but the thing about it is that through, of course, my wife, through like other avenues, through my kids, this is just stuff that I hear. Mm-hmm. I can't, it's not like I could say, oh man, I was fighting all the time. I fought a lot in the years where I felt like I had to fight, which was like elementary school, up until like about 7th or 8th grade, kind of more like locker room stuff. But for the most part, I avoided confrontations with people. Like I can't say I was a guy that everybody just said, I want to fight him. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't that dude. I didn't walk around being tough. I had an S curl. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? I danced.
Did you have the hoop? Did you have the hoop earring?
Nah, no hoop earrings. Okay. No.
You had a stud at least. You had two studs.
I used to have the diamond little. Okay. You go to the little spot, get them for $13.
Yeah. What is it like the baby
cubic zirconias?
Yeah. With I'm talking about Cash Money baby. You know how you used to wear them big.
I didn't do those, man. I kept them. I said if I get small ones, they may think it's real.
Real diamonds.
I said. They know it's fake if it's big. But
look.
I said, let me stay small. I got hope.
Hey, fake it till you make it. That's what they say. Man, I did the same thing. I used to think the same thing. As long if it's small enough, they might just think it's real.
I got hope. But the thing was, I don't I can say in male spaces. Mm-hmm. I think when I'm around actual aggressive people, they don't view me as aggressive.
I don't. That's what I'm saying. I don't think I'm aggressive. Do I come off?
Well,
aggressive?
no. I would say this: if the stories are true, then I would say, based on the stories, I would say JGhee could be aggressive.
Okay.
But when we interact, I wouldn't say aggressive. Right. But I felt like if the stories are true, then I could see where that could come out.
Okay.
Just not like you walk around with that 24/7. Like you don't have to carry it as a badge of honor. Mm-hmm. It's just something that if I got to pull it out, I'll pull it out. But I'm confident enough to walk around this way.
Okay, right.
And it sounds like a lot of it's just old stories where that's in the past, but don't get it twisted. It's in there still. Mm-hmm. It's just not who I am.
It's not who I am.
Because for me.
Well said.
So, but in that same right, if I you know how it is, especially when you play football, the aggressors in the locker room. When guys are aggressive,
the alphas.
They throw it around. Mm-hmm. So to me, I still think the way I look at it is, okay, I'm not like them.
Right.
But I'm very direct. So when I tell my kids to do something.
That's the word. I don't know why I couldn't think of that. Yeah.
I do expect it to get it done.
Right.
And then I'm kind of like, I don't want to say OCD, but I'm really good at staying on top of something. I have no problem with pressure and applying it. So
is it borderline micromanaging, or is it? Or do you
for my kids, it's definitely micromanaging.
Yeah, because I get that from my daughter.
I'm micromanaging, but to just everyday life, it's just like, well, okay, well, I'm gonna call you back. All right, then just my natural mind says I'll wait for the call.
Right. Yeah, I noticed that when I hear that, I was like, in my mind, I was like, I gotta get this to him. Like we're talking about SEO yesterday. I was like, I was in the shower and I was like, it was kind of like you gotta give something to you finish taking out the trash for Dad, Craig, and you don't do it, and it's like, oh snap, the trash, and I was like, oh snap, SEO. Like we just talked about this yesterday. I said I was gonna get it to you, which I am, but see that fear is in me. Fear as far as respect for you is in me, because what's the first word you said today before we even got on?
Hold on. Oh, you talking about?
You said we are trying to be.
I didn't say the basics. Cause
No. You said we're trying to be consistent.
Consistent.
Yeah,
there we go.
Yeah. You were just talking. You were just.
I was congratulating us on being consistent with the podcast,
and that immediately put me in a mind frame of, I'm not being consistent because our theme is that we've been getting some momentum because we're being consistent. All right, Greg, do what you said you was going to do for him. You know what I'm saying? And not that you was disrespectful to me, or you degraded me or anything like that, or you belittled me. You're just like, hey, can you get this to me? But it just put me in that mind frame when you say yes, let your yeses be your yeses and your no's be your no's.
And iron sharpens iron, because I feel like what the relationship we got is I feel like anytime I'm with somebody that I chose to be around, then that's a person I can learn something from. That's a person that brings some form of value, that even if they don't know they're adding value, that's what makes it worth something. Because to me, that's what I feel like the relationship is. It's there's a place for value.
A place for value. I like that.
So,
I like that.
I think what we get, even if you talk about the listeners, I think everybody is always learning. If you're paying attention, at least,
right, you're
always learning from something. Like even when I sit my kids down and I talk to them about stuff, I've sometimes realized through talking to them, I may go, wow, a dot connected, or just something different triggered, that if we never had that conversation, it probably wouldn't have put me in the mind frame to say, okay, you know what, I might need to do this a little different.
Right.
Because I had, talking about communication, like with my son, I got 3 daughters. And I think I'm more harder on him because it's a female dominated home.
Right. There's a lot of estrogen.
It's a lot of women around. Even in my family, it's a lot of aunts. There's a lot of, grandmas. Most of the grandpas died before the grandma. So it's just more women. So I just be on them. And I just had to ask him one day. I think this was maybe like 2 or 3 years. I said, is Daddy too hard on you? And I let him get it off. And every now and then I just check back in with him.
I've done that too.
Because I'm like, am I too hard on you?
Am I too hard? And it's not, and I know the old school pops would be like, man, what you need to ask that for? But you've got to do a temperature check sometimes, because you don't want to quicken your child to frustration or anger. That's not the intent of being a father.
And I don't want my son to hate me.
Exactly. So
I was always really not allowed to tell my mom how I felt. I could get a whooping for that.
Me too. Hey, look, boy. Hey,
you can get beat for sharing your feelings. So I told myself, I said, you know what? I will leave the door open for my kids to feel comfortable, to critique my parenting at times. Even if they wrong, I still want to hear what they got to say, because I want to give them the space to say, you know what? I don't like you doing this. Now, granted, I may keep doing it, but
you're aware of it.
I'm aware, and if I'm wrong, I'll admit to my kids, Daddy was wrong.
That's another thing too. I used to do report cards, report cards. Never grade your child, right? Because they're not mentally mature to take a grading, say for, and I don't want to get my kids in the mindset. Schools grade them enough, society grades them enough, you know what I'm saying, on stuff that don't even matter. So why should I grade them? But because it gives me a gauge of where I'm at and what I've been doing, I always ask for a report card, a parent report card. And in that report card, it wasn't just black and white where A, timeliness, B, you know, whatever. No, it was more so of, just like you said, what have I been doing? What do I do? What do I keep on doing that you guys don't like? Or that gets on your nerves? What is it that I say? Am I being a hypocrite? That's another question.
That's a big one.
That's another question that I really want my pops out there to really start examining. Don't be afraid to ask, because I've been called a hypocrite by my kids more than I've been graded. But respectfully, in their defense, respectfully, because sometimes you have to give your child that space to check you in a way that they should know how to check you. So when they get older and sometimes the roles get reversed in your old age and they become a little bit wiser, they can know how to approach you and still have that respect. You know what I'm saying? And also you could be in place. And it's also a check and balance system. And it keeps the house in a perfect balance. So lay aside that ego. Again, pops, emotions make for great, emotions of money. We're talking about emotions today, but emotions make for great slaves, horrible masters. So think about it. If your child is giving you feedback through an outward in approach, why not take that? That's valuable. That'll save you a lot of money in a therapy office.
Well, that, and I think what it does too is like for me, because I could never get it out. Mm-hmm. Even when I tried to, it just went bad. So I just stopped trying. But just the fact that I felt like no matter what my mother did, I said I'm a respecter and all those different type of things. But at the same time, I can also say me going through that is what made me view how I want to parent. Like I would always be in the room crying or something. I never do my kids like this. I used to do it all the time. I never. And I'm not doing it.
Right.
But because I think there's even been moments where people have come around and seen how I interact with my kids sometimes. And I think like, especially like older people, mm-hmm. I think they view sometimes my kids are maybe back talking me. Mm. I've had moments like that. But to me, I'm like, what I'm letting them know is that no, I'm letting them say how they feel.
Right.
Because if they're wrong, then I will address it.
Then you address it.
But if they're right,
right.
I'm going to let them be right if they're right. Mm-hmm. But in a lot of cases, kids just are saying how they feel with no real nothing behind it. But I'm also dealing with younger kids. I'm not dealing with a 17-year-old or a 21-year-old or something mm-hmm. like that. I'm dealing with 9-year-olds.
You know, it's funny, man. Like my son is more respectful than he. Not that he like disrespected me to my face, but you know, he would. I would tell him to do something, and then he would act like he was doing it, and then don't do it, and then you find out that he hasn't been doing something, and then it builds up, right? Or you can see the frustration. My son is kind of like me, where you see the frustration where he starts to vent. He's not talking to me or at me. He's just talking around me. You know what I'm saying? And now it's kind of like I start to see that, this brother is really thinking things through. You know, and again, it was like with those situations and instances where you're thinking that maybe it's not seeping in. Mm-hmm. It actually is, because I've always given him the floor. I think that approach for him was more so like, I would say, not just being one-on-one. I had to take him out of the place he was frustrated in, which I didn't understand until later. Much later, till he was like 17, 18. I learned that I had to get him out the house where that frustration started. If I got onto him at the house, he don't want to talk about nothing at the house. He don't want to open up the floor. My daughter's kind of the same way. If it's kind of like them getting shell shocked, you know what I'm saying? and I can't think of another example, a better example. It's like, I've heard of instances where women and men who've gotten raped, they don't want to go to that same place physically. They don't want to go to any place that looks like they got. Say if you got, God forbid, raped in a Walmart, they're traumatized to where they don't ever want to go to a Walmart. You know what I'm saying? So it's kind of like that. My kids are shell shocked in that area in which they experience that quote unquote trauma, and so I learned that I have to take them out of that place. Like maybe go to a park, maybe skip school with them, maybe take them out to whatever, but just get them out of the element. Go for a walk, but don't settle that right there. Make sure it's ended because they got to go to bed. We got to eat. We got to break bread. So make sure it's ended in that space and domain, but it doesn't have to be addressed in that space and domain. So that's one thing I got later on. I wish I would have got it early on.
The thing that I think my mom did, that I think she did well, that I see myself doing, is she would give me like 3-hour lectures.
That's my dad, and that's me too.
And that's me. So like, even with my oldest, I feel like with her, she was viewing the lectures as like a whooping.
As a whooping, right. As a verbal
beating,
a verbal lashing.
And then
that's how my kids look at my...
I'm pretty sure my tone was not right because I am definitely not happy.
Right.
But I think what's happened with me and her is lately, especially since I told you with her going back home in December and the things that we've just discussed as we continue to try to progress our relationship, the point is, I feel like now she realizes that, okay, maybe this isn't him being like upset with me or he's mad at me. I think now she's starting to view it as he might just really be trying to get, because all I'm really trying to do is give you some information so you can process your thoughts around how you want to handle something. If we're talking about dating, then I'm just giving you information about what happens when you enter this world. You're not dating yet, but I don't want to wait till you start dating to have these conversations.
And at the end of the day, I used to say this, I used to disclaim all my lectures, I'm only perpetuating my passion. I know that's a $10 word, but it's like, I'm really, bringing some type of outward appearance to what my inner feelings are. And if it sounds like I'm upset or mad, it's not. I promise you.
I have to do that all the time.
It's just that I'm so passionate. You know what I'm saying? It's like a soft flame. It'll burn you. You know what I'm saying? But it's contained. It's to keep you warm.
I only have 2 kids of mine that can't tell the difference. That's my son and my oldest daughter. The other 2, I think they just get it. But them other 2. It's something that connects with them that says, I'm in trouble. Are
they both people pleasers?
None of my kids are people pleasers, though. Okay. I have one. The problem is there's too much of me in all of them.
Okay.
So they have this, I don't care about nothing, just vibe. They just walk around like nothing matters.
They do. They
just like nothing matters.
They do. They look.
And 3 of them got that bad. Right. There's only 1, and the 1 acts like mom says.
Okay.
So that's a total different kind of situation for her because my 3, the personalities are far and wide.
Every time I see your son, man, the song that comes to mind. I'm glad you said that. The song that comes to mind, ain't worried about nothing.
Yeah,
ain't worried about nothing because it's like just his face, his countenance, his look alone. Like it's not like I don't care about anything in life. It's just like I'm not gonna let anything get to me.
And the problem is 3 of them got it, and so now when interacting, I'm interacting with myself.
Right.
So even though I'm passionate about what I'm talking about,
the older you,
they're like, they don't, they really don't care.
They don't care.
And the problem is I know it because it's me all over again times 3 though. Yep. I feel like, I don't want to say like if, God's punishing you, nothing like that.
No, I don't think that.
But when you're talking about through parenting and you get the qualities of yourself and your kids, You have to deal with those qualities.
Right.
So if you were stubborn, you have 3. All it takes is 2 of them to be stubborn. That's all it takes.
That's all.
Or one of them to be stubborn.
Like I was very tactful and sneaky. Like I love spy movies. I love to see the man get away. I love to see the character get away. And that to me was like loopholes. Were my thing. Now I worked hard, very hard.
But who got the loopholes?
Who got the loopholes?
Out of your 2. Or both.
It's both of them, but I would say my daughter.
That's the one you. That's the one you don't want to have the loopholes.
That's the one you don't want to have loopholes.
You don't want her with the loopholes.
So at this point, I'm just really accepting it as it is, and just like you, looking at the mirror, knowing that okay, I can't be mad at this because what if these kids weren't like me? Then I have an issue.
But you know what I think is good about once you recognize it is you know you better than you.
Right.
So you can address it in a way that you feel like it will resonate or will connect. So you can now that's the advantage. It's like, okay, I see you possess this. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm gonna have to come at you this way. I can't do it this way. I got to come at you the way I needed it.
You're not throwing a rock.
Yeah.
And hoping it'll land on something. Right. You actually have an actual outfitted plan on how you're going to deal with it.
On how you're going to do it, because with my oldest daughter, I'm just blunt. Because the problem is, that's what works for me. Mm-hmm. Don't give me the fat. I want straight to the meat.
Right.
Skip the courses. Skip the meat. I want it.
Right.
So I think that's one thing that worked well with me with football coaches.
Uh-huh.
They just give it to you.
They give it to you, right?
Don't pat me on the
Straight,
back.
no chaser. Yeah.
Grab me by the helmet, cuss me out, and I'm gonna be ready next play.
Right. I'm gonna get it right.
My oldest daughter, I know for a fact, got that. Mm-hmm. I can't say that for the other 3 yet, because I don't really know how that's kind of working. But my oldest daughter definitely got that. Mm-hmm. Blunt, straight to the point, gets the job done.
Right.
And I think she prefers it that way. And I think now with the communication, if we can just address what she's dealing with and just be honest, if I could just tell her honestly.
My son is like that. Now that you said it, he's more like, give me the rock, Dad.
Yeah.
Now he might fumble it a couple of times. You know what I'm saying? He might get negative yardage, but he wants to run the rock.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think once you start, and it's a good thing. That's a good point that you brought up, man. Understanding the roles that your kid plays and the position that your kids can play will help you define your fatherhood. You know what I'm saying? If you just sit back and you say, this one, and we use a lot of football analogies, and I think that's one of the reasons why we
play too much. And plus, when you're from Texas,
you
ain't got no choice.
I just got through playing Madden before I came here. Yeah. But I think when you have an understanding of their roles and their positions, and sometimes even me, I got to realize that sometimes I can't be the quarterback. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes, playing different teams, wifey might have a different look or read on the situation. And I don't have enough audibles for all this. You know
what's funny? I'm glad you brought that up, because in my case, Mom says I would, if I had to pick a quarterback, she'd just be Peyton Manning.
Okay.
Because we called the play, but when we get to the line, she finna
look. She looking at that arm.
Blue,
she looking at the arm. She looking at the arm. Yeah.
Because I feel like she reads me better than anybody.
Right.
It's almost like I could give a look and she just know audible. Like,
right.
She'll just call a whole nother play.
Uh-huh.
And for me, I think that's good, because I think one of my biggest problems, I'm an extremist. Mm-hmm. So I'm either way over here left or I'm way to the right. I really don't do the middle.
Wifey is more like a Randall Cunningham or Lamar Jackson.
Oh, gonna take it and run with it?
She gonna take it. She gonna take it. She got an arm. But she gonna take it and run with it. She gonna get them hard yardages. You know what I'm saying? But shout out to my mom said, yeah, we couldn't do it without him.
But I think, but the point, I guess, going back to them coming in, is sometimes I think when we're talking about how we deal with our kids, how we deal with them, I think sometimes they recognize stuff when it's like, okay, I think you're about to cross the line.
Right.
Or you know what, just let me handle this, or just let me go ahead and deal with this situation, because I get that a lot. But that's why I said Peyton Manning, because I can just, and I just think she just knows what that look is. That quick of a joke, and she's already calling out.
Well, she's aware too. She has a high awareness like Peyton Manning. Like,
yeah.
She has a high IQ of making an assessment and looking at the reads and calling it such, which that's commendable to all my wives and all my mom says out there that can really assess the situation and be quick on your feet, like Bernie Mac say, quick on your feet.
Yes, quick for real. And the thing is, for me, I realize that's what I need.
Yeah.
Because I will go to the extreme, and that's the problem.
You know what? And I think also, this is very telling too, man. Like knowing yourself is very valuable, because if you know yourself, then you can help those around you help you.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? That's very valuable. And I think also that, like Chris Rock said, he said something about being a tambourine player. You know what I'm saying? Like, you may not be lead guitar this month, you know what I'm saying? But when you get that tambourine, you better play it. And it's okay. It's really okay, because if you look at the grand scheme of things, if you believe that you were supposed to be here at this particular moment, then you playing that role led you to where you're at now. And I think that we, as pops, there's a fine line between aggression, ego, and leadership.
And that's a tough balance, though.
It is.
And it's even tougher when no one provided you with the right tools and the right balance to figure it out. For me, I feel like the structure came from, and I know a lot of people get all caught up in religion and stuff, but I feel like for me, that's what the Bible provided.
Right.
So for someone else, who knows? People are into different things. But I feel like at some point, you do have to assess yourself and where you're at and just be honest with, you know what? I really am not a good dad. I'm really not a good husband. I'm really not a good communicator. I'm really not. That's where the honest part got to come in, is accepting it. And I just think that's tough. And it's hard to admit, to say, you know what? I'm not good at this.
What is a good father?
Oh, boy.
Sometimes you gotta answer that with a question. You know what I'm saying? That's why I got my Jeopardy music on.
But what is a good father? That, of course, that's tough to answer. But I'll say it starts at least with this. If you don't understand yourself, you're expected to raise children. How can you really raise them when you still dealing with yourself?
Right. And that's what I say. Sometimes you got to answer that with a question, because that answer is not the answer that you're seeking right now cannot be completed until you're able to ask and answer all those questions that will get you to the answer. So it's always unfulfilled, but through consistency, like you mentioned before, if we start to consistently learn more about ourselves, we can learn more about the people who we help create. It's going to help us learn about ourselves. You know, we can't be too big for our britches, is what I'm saying. And I love that analogy, bro. I love that analogy. So we got some things that we are, and I'm new to it, and I'm not gonna get too much into it, but you have put me on to, within the last year, a lot of different perspectives with the Sabbath, observing the Sabbath and what it means, and some of the holy days and stuff like that. And for me to say that, and I've never used this word, but for us to say that we're woke and we have an understanding, that brings me to the example of, we think we are what we appear to be, or what we think we are, but we're really not, because we don't have an understanding of what that actual word woke means, or understanding. The reason I'm saying this is because,
but woke was hijacked. And they turned it into
they did. You're right.
They turned it into something else.
You're right. Which they usually do. They take something and they pervert it into something else. But the reason I say this, and I know the honest is like, where are you going with this? Here's the thing. I used to do things and not know why I was doing it. Holidays, didn't know why I was doing it. Traditions, didn't know why I was doing it. Things as a father, didn't know why I was doing it until I went back to my history. Until I went back to the history of the real Passover. Till I went back to the history of the real Shabbat. If you don't know your history, all I'm trying to tell you is if you don't know your history, you're bound to do what?
Repeat it. And I think that goes into, if you're talking about, I guess, healing yourself, I think we have to address and start with our childhood stuff. Like, there are things that you could be talking to a grown adult and they'll say, well, when I was a kid, or this happened to me when I was 14. Okay, well, if all these things happened when you were younger, they're clearly still affecting you.
Exactly.
So the question is, have you actually dealt with what created the problem? So if I think even when the situation with Chris Brown, this old, people don't even like bringing it up because it's like it reminds people what happened with him and Rihanna. But one of the things he mentioned at that time was he's seen that in the household.
In the household.
So the problem is, okay, the child is acting out something that they saw, but at what point do you say, okay, I recognize this is bad behavior and I need to deal with it?
And that brings me to another question. In that instance, how come, because we've seen this in other facets and arenas with other people, right? Where I'll just give you an example without making it too evident, right? Crack versus cocaine, right? Cocaine being an addiction, crack being a crime, being criminalized. Heroin, when the people in the black community were doing it, it was criminalized. When now that we have an opioid heroin problem now, it's an addiction.
Yeah.
Right. How come nobody saw, if at all, the opportunity to address domestic violence and use him as a spokesperson for that? And that's just might be a rhetorical question, but it's kind of like one of those things to where instead of canceling, having a culture that cancels everything, because once you cancel something, you don't address that situation. You don't go back to it, and it festers to something. It'll come up next year, and the year after that, and year after that. So that's one thing I want to bring up, and I know we don't have that much time, but it's funny how we like to cancel out so many things without even addressing them.
But you know why I think cancel culture even exists? I feel like this. Let's say the Chris Brown situation was your real life child.
Right.
Most people in that situation that are close to that child would handle it the way you're referring to.
Right.
The problem is celebrities, their lifestyles. People love them and they love to see them fall. Because the reality is most people that are fans of these people are never going to accomplish
that status. Right.
So they enjoy the fact that they rose, but they also enjoy the fall.
The fall. Right.
So the problem is that it makes people feel better about themselves when they see these superior people that they think they are, that they forget they're human.
They're human.
And they almost become godlike. Right. So now when you see this figure that's
you ever been to a concert?
I don't go to concerts.
I don't go to concerts anymore.
Yeah, I never. I can't even say I've been to one. So
after I realized what I was doing and the energy that I was putting out and perpetuating, I was like, I can't be a part of this.
Yeah, and I just can't understand. Concerts just don't even make sense to me.
I used to love concerts, man. I grew up going to the first Michael Jackson concert, bad, you know what I'm saying, from a kid all the way up, New Edition. I guess based how you are and how you're outfitted. But as I got to be older, I started to realize like,
I just couldn't connect with.
Yeah, I didn't want to get that much. I don't want to get that energy.
But like even with that, people, I guess because in reality, if you just make $10 an hour and this guy makes $50 million an hour, or $50 million a year, if he falls or crashes, to a certain degree, I think there's a joy for some people. Like,
it's fulfillment.
oh,
right?
well, that's what you get, you
Right.
know, blah, blah, blah. Versus you ain't really rooting for the person. Because there's too many Hollywood stories of the Whitney Houston type scenarios, the Bobby Browns, where people loved them when they were 16 and 19.
Right.
But they also love seeing them look terrible on that reality show.
Yep.
So you just get both. And I feel like, if we're gonna sum up the show, I just feel like the communication part of it is you really get to a point to where you gotta start with yourself and address it. Mm-hmm. And then that makes it easier for you to be honest. And I think once you can be honest with yourself, it makes it easier to be honest with other people when you do communicate.
And it's okay to be on the outside looking in, or having people on the outside looking in giving you their perspective. Because at the end of the day, ain't nobody gonna love you like you and the people that's closest to you. And also one thing I want to leave, and I'm not trying to get the last word, but hey, emotions make for great slaves, but horrible masters. I want y'all to keep that with you. Pop Says Podcast. I'm your host, JG, alongside my man,
JB.
And this is Pop Says Podcast. Until then, you better say that.